supercars. You can run at the front potentially, given the opportunity, in a V8 supercar. You are no mug punter.
Yes, we've seen it in various forms of motor racing. Good top-notch karters have gone on to be very successful. Sean Henselwood has just named a couple of scenarios. Obviously, the sport of speedway boasts many former karters, the top-line sprint car drivers, like reigning World Series champion Brooke Tatnall. Just have a look at this action. If this doesn't turn you on, you haven't got a switch.
Well, here we've got an interesting fight for third place. Bart Price has crawled right up on the back there of Jonathan Reed as they start to catch some of the back markers. And, of course, now you've got Brendan May. He seems to have dropped back just a touch here. And
got some front spoiler problems, mate. Oh, here we go.
A little bit
major
of
problem. And May has decided to negotiate the next corner via Sydney.
Well, it looks like May's had contact with someone. Reed's ducked up the inside. Bart Price has thought, hey, here's an opening, and all of a sudden 3 going into 2, into 1, just doesn't work, and somebody has to lose. It looks like Bart Price was the big loser there, a big pity.
Yeah, Brendan May has regained.
Well, he has, and now Timothy Macro, who was further back again in 5th, all of a sudden finds himself 3rd and within a couple of kart lengths of being the race leader.
Intercontinental A, sponsored proudly by APS on checkered flag this week. Not far remaining now in this event, the all-important final with maximum points up for grabs in this 4-round championship. Speaking of the championship, we should mention,
gee, tappy.
A backward flip.
That's not good. That's race leader Daniel Elliott just suffering something that most drivers want to steer clear of. Watch this, an engine failure. Bang, it's let go. Brendan May's incredibly lucky not to have had a major accident there. And he's actually incredibly lucky still to be going. And he's the race leader.
May will be a nervous wreck at the end of this. He's been in more trouble than he would have possibly imagined entering the race. Somehow has managed to bob up in front. I was about to mention round 3 of the APS karting series as we look at our leading 2 drivers. It's August 20th, Eastern Creek International Karting Raceway. That'll be round 3 of the tournament. And, of course, you'll see the highlights right here on this program. Daniel Elliott involved as we look at a replay of some of the close action just prior to the engine expiration.
Yeah, it was a big pity for Daniel. You can see him disappearing off into the background over there. And Brendan May, thanks very much. I've won. That's 2 rounds, 2 wins, and I think he might want to start going to church. Exactly. Very, very lucky.
I'll tell you what, under that helmet, he'll be smiling like a carpet snake in a fowl house. What a race. He got it. Takes the money, takes the points, and given the circumstances that prevailed in that event, he'll be pretty pleased it's over as well. Another look at the engine detonation to which Sean Henselwood alluded, with the man that was really commanding, Daniel Elliott. It all went wrong for him through no fault of his own. Recapping the results, Brendan May, Tim Macro, Barclay Holden, and you can read through the remainder, Sean.
Jason Hynuk, Trent Rogers, Jonathan Reed, Jade Hogan, Chris Gilmore, Timothy Carmis, and Michael Patrese from Western Australia pulling out position 10.
Okay, that'll do you. You've got to get into position to talk to our race winner as I recap the remainder of those placings. Cunningham, Park Burns, Curtis Dean Richards, Gad Sherwood, Abbott, and Ben Kennedy finishing in 20th place in the Haas Titan Bridgestone entry. Big field of karters in the Intercontinental A section, sponsored by APS Racing. Sean Henselwood moving into position right now to catch up with our race winner. And we recap the remainder of them for you. Elliott, Smith, Tressida, Price, Oliver, Payne, Williams, Wall, Vince, and Brett Shales. Finishing 30th officially in the Azuru Fox Bridgestone entry. Then back to Bell, Hobby, Agremi, Lumbu in machine number 34. Here's Sean Henselwood now with our race victor.
Brendan May, 2 wins from 2 starts in the APS Racing Series for 2000. You've been around a few years. You've been to America, if memory serves correct, against some of the best drivers in the world. Where are you going to go from here?
Hopefully we can move forward. We can keep on progressing. It's been a couple of years now in Intercontinental A. Hopefully next year we'll move on to Formula A and then through into cars and further and further.
Do you think there's any opportunity for you racing karts in Europe like Troy Hunt has done, potentially going into Super A, or maybe even join the Mike Wilson team over there?
Yeah, I think there could be. From what we've heard over there, they're keen to get something happening, and hopefully in the next 12 months or so we can perhaps go over there and see how we go.
Thanks for joining us this week on Checkered Flag. You're watching C7 Sport and the second round of the APS kart racing series. We now advance to Pataris Press Formula A, and the question on everyone's lips as they came to Ipswich was, could anyone do anything about McFadden? By the first practice session, it appeared not, although 1998 Formula A champion Ryan Lazinski stole McFadden's thunder by taking pole by just under 2/10. Third fastest qualifier was the big surprise. Local driver Simon Richardson putting his PCR on grid 3 and hassling McFadden and Lazinski through the heats. Also on the pace was 1997 Australian and North American junior champion Michael Caruso, who, like other Inter-A's, Barclay Holden, had also suffered his fair share of engine detonations during practice. Where the leaders fell, Caruso picked up, the young Sydney driver lining up on grid 2 for the pre-final. McFadden, of course, off pole. Big surprise for the pre-final was another local, Bradley Brown. Brown started 7th and worked his way through the leaders to take the win from McFadden in the closing stages, hassled only by Caruso. This was short-lived though, the Tony kart driver rolling to a stop whilst looking comfortable with a broken engine. Literally, the head studs had snapped, allowing the engine to lose compression. Lazinski held on for 3rd behind McFadden. The consistent Brendan Dive 4th and the improving Joshua Pontello 5th. Let's recap them now for you on Checkered Flag. The pre-final results in Pataris Press Formula A. It was Bradley Brown, Neil McFadden, Ryan Lazinski, Brendan Dive, Joshua Pontello, Clinton Dive, Richard McLeod, Mark Winterbottom, Wesley May, Andrew Tomlinson. When the Tony kart finished 10th in the pre-final, and by virtue of that starts in the same posse in this event.
Simon Richardson, the 3rd place qualifier, drops to 11th for the start of the final. Adam Graham, 12th. Clint Cathcart, Chris Cox, Jamie Whincup, the reigning champion, William Yarwood, Mark Domeshay, Tyson Pearce, Michael Caruso, Malcolm Heath and David Clark, who unfortunately suffered a major accident during qualifying.
Here we go now, set for a start in the elite category of classing on the program. Great start there by Bradley Brown. I was looking for McFadden. That looks to be him back in 3rd as they settle down. Good to see all drivers got through the first couple of corners okay.
That's an energy 1-2 with Bradley Brown grabbing the lead from 98 champion Ryan Lazinski. McFadden, of course, 3rd, and Joshua Pontello there in 4th.
Lazinski, a Queenslander, always a model of consistency. Once again, they're diving all over the racetrack, trying to find a racing line and assert their superiority early. We've caught a glimpse of our race leader, Bradley Brown. Nice tight shot. Here they come now, the leading bunch of drivers. It's Brown, followed back in 2nd by Lazinski. And that is McFadden running 3rd in the familiar skilled entry. Nothing between them at this stage.
No, nothing between them. They're all trying to, somebody's trying to stamp their authority on this race early. And the 2 energy drivers are really going to make a push of it, because McFadden has some talent, he has some knowledge, and he has some patience. So he's really going to sit there and let these guys sort themselves out. If they do something silly, great. He's got all the track clear in front of him.
He's an incredible driver, McFadden. He always manages to exceed expectations. Won the Junior Intercontinental A series a couple of years ago, if memory serves me correctly, and stepped up to the next category last year and did very well there again. He just keeps doing it, doesn't he?
He's in his 3rd year of CIK International Class Racing, his 1st year in Junior Inter. He started, won the championship. His 2nd year in Intercontinental A, started the championship, won at the end of the year. This is his 1st year in Formula A. 2 rounds, 1st round, started well, victory. 2nd round, here he is again at the front. Be interesting to see what the final outcome will be.
It's Bradley Brown, narrow race leader, the Queenslander, from his compatriot Ryan Lazinski. Then it's McFadden. I've got to say, this is one of the better Formula A races I've seen for quite some time. They are really packed up closely up front. Good advertisement for Energy Kart. They run 1-2 on the racetrack. Nothing between this trio. Have a look at them going gangbusters. Here's McFadden up the inside. They touch, they exchange paint. Doesn't get much better than this.
A fantastic run here. Brown's really come good. He didn't qualify particularly well, but he's come to the front when he's needed to. And here he is running very, very nicely up front, setting the pace and forcing these other guys to perhaps go out a little harder than they wanted, so that he doesn't disappear too far away and do what Andrew Thompson did in Junior Intercontinental A.
Drivers running 4th and 5th on the racetrack are not too far away either.
Very close. It's the dives in 5th and 6th, following Joshua Pontello in 4th. He seems to be slowing them up a little bit. They've really banked up behind him. And second, third, they're fairly close, third and fourth, bit of a gap.
I'll tell you what, Sean Henselwood, it might be a bumpy circuit, but doesn't it produce good close racing? All of the classes we've seen on today's program have put on this kind of show. Up the inside now comes Lazinski. Is there a chance? Gee, he uses all of the racetrack and then some more. Has time for a look over the shoulder, needed to.
Oh, he certainly did. He looked like he had the pace there, but Bradley Brown's been around this track a few times. Little bit of a touch, and he might have left the door slightly open, but he slammed it firmly closed as they came out the exit of the corner.
McFadden.
Now, yes, we've got McFadden into second. We've got Ledzinski back to third, and a little bit more action further back because this bunch is now grouped up, courtesy of this fight for the lead. Yeah,
nice move by McFadden. Pontello still involved in a good battle just outside of the minor placings at the moment.
Brendan Dive had a good look there for fourth. Actually got in front of Pontello, but of course the corners worked the other way and against him. Here we've got McFadden going for the lead.
Great stuff. McFadden starting the race on pole, slipped back to third. He now leads. Another look, different angle. The driver of 59 nipping up on the inside in a beautiful move. Another look at it from a different angle.
He really planned this quite well. Got the run on Bradley Brown and managed to get through. And he'll be looking to stretch this lead now. Make those energy drivers really work for those placings.
Gee, they're tightly packed, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Very violent. You can see the drivers' heads moving around quite a lot. I keep saying very violent, but they are. You have no real idea until you get behind the wheel of one of these things just how hard they are on your body. And it shows you just how fit these kids are.
You can see Michael Caruso involved in a battle further back in the pack. Nice close-up shot of Lazinski in full flight around this 1100-metre Willowbank Raceway in Queensland. Round 2 APS Kart Racing Series. Joshua Pontello in that predominantly silver machine, number 27. They crouch over the top of the steering wheel, looking for aerodynamic assistance up the straight. Now nipping up the inside as Brendan Dive. So we're seeing plenty of passing and overtaking in this race.
Yeah, fantastic job. Brendan Dive's always consistent. He's always there in the top five. He's moved very carefully forward. He's lined that up well. He had the pace down the straight, and he's managed to pull it off this time. He's made sure that Pontello can't get back down the inside and grab that position back from him.
Winterbottom in 41. Oh, went up on two wheels. Nasty moment for that driver. Another look in slow-mo.
Yeah, Mark Winterbottom's gripped up here. These karts lay down a lot of rubber. They're very soft, sticky tyres. And what happens is once the rubber's down, rubber sticks to rubber, it grips up and throws the kart up.
Richard McLeod immediately behind him in 14. He's just been bumped back one more spot.
Yeah, Michael Caruso's coming through from the back of the pack. He's actually running one of the fastest karts on the circuit. He's managed to get himself inside the top 10 now and just nicked inside the 93 Australian Formula A champion, Richard McLeod.
Well, I bet McLeod got big eyeballs when he was following the driver that went up on two wheels. He thought, what am I going to do here? Fortunately, that incident didn't become too big a problem for anybody.
I think the other guy that got himself up on two wheels, we're looking there now at kart number 41, Mark Winterbottom's thinking right now, he's got big eyes. Michael Caruso's coming, and I really don't want to let him through, but I don't know what I'm going to do to stop him.
Winterbottom sizing Pontello up for an inside pass. It was not forthcoming on that occasion. And as Sean has mentioned a couple of times, that's Caruso in kart number 5 making wonderful progress from the back of the pack. He is very much a man on the mission. Wonder how much he's used up his tyres.
Well, that's the big thing. These tyres have to run an awful lot of laps. It's a very, very long final. And 25 minutes on the track. They've used the same rubber for the pre-final, and a number of them have used the same rubber for heats. So it's really, really conservation of tyres to make sure that at the closing laps, when you really need them to give you that final edge over your competition, you've got what you need.
So they are the technical regulations for the tyres. They must run the same in the final as the pre-final?
Formula A run 2 sets of tyres. They can run one complete set for qualifying, heat 1, heat 2, heat 3, then they swap to brand new tyres for the pre-final and the final. That's the way the rules work, and that means that you have to be very clever with not just your driving, your engine setup, your chassis setup. You've got to be very, very clever with your tyre conservation. And a lot of the smarter drivers you'll see won't start to attack until the closing laps of the final. And there they've conserved rubber. It can make a big difference.
Caruso and Pontello involved in a great battle along with Mark Winterbottom. Nothing between them. Close together on the circuit. They run up the hill slightly as they tuck out of that right-hander. It is a slightly undulating surface here, isn't it?
It's a fairly technical circuit too, David. There's some tight hairpin corners where you're not quite coming to a stop, but you're running very slowly. And then there's some very long straights. You're really making that engine work. Here you see Caruso's finally got his way around. Joshua Pontello's looking to close the door halfway through the corner, which wouldn't have done him any good. And Caruso's really worked that card hard. He's come through. He's tried to conserve tyres as much as he could, but he really needs to get to the front. He's not going to catch McFadden, who's really starting to make a gap now. And there you see it. He's lined himself up nicely for the corner. Plenty of speed, plenty of poke. He's just put it into the hole and shot through for that position.
Terrific pitches. Lazinski in 17, narrowly in front of Brendan Dive. Next man through is Caruso. So that's a great battle. It's been one of many terrific battles we've seen throughout this weekend in round 2 of the APS series.
We've just missed not too long ago out of screen Bradley Brown, who was running around closely in seconds, come together with his teammate Ryan Lazinski into the first turn. He's left the door partially open, then tried to close it. Lazinski's had a look up the inside, feigned the attack, backed out. The two have come together. Unfortunately, Bradley Brown's day has come to an end, and Lazinski needs to try and hold out both Caruso here, who's taken the position away from Dive, and Brendan Dive.
Won't be easy, will it? Another look as Caruso sizes up the inside for that slingshot move. It worked out fine for him, relegating Brendan Dive back a spot.
Well, Caruso's right on the money. You can see how much faster he is than the rest of the field. He's caught them, he's passed them, he's got away, he's caught the next guy. He's not going to catch the next guy in front of Ryan Lazinski. There's not enough laps, and that margin that Neil McFadden has, well, we haven't seen him for a while. He's that far in front. He's just too great for him to breach. So from position 20 on the grid, who knows, second, third is a fairly good job.
You'd say so, wouldn't you? Your job you and I'd be happy with.
Oh, you would. I think the laps would need to be shorter for us to do it and stay alive at the end of the race. But there he goes, grabs position second, and I think Ryan Lazinski's quite happy to let him have it relatively easy and just contend to the end.
They're certainly enjoying themselves out there. Another look at it is Lazinski on the outside, right-hand side of your picture. Caruso coming up the inside. And I think you made the comment Lazinski may have been holding him up a touch. I guess we'll get to see now whether Caruso can make any inroads into the lead endured by McFadden.
Here you're looking at Clinton Dive following Mark Winterbottom around. Clinton, of course, is Brendan Dive's brother. The two brothers run similar chassis, similar engines, well, same chassis, same engines, different driving style marginally, but they're both running well inside the top 10. It's a fantastic job to see them here.
There's Dive, another New South Welshman in the Haas entry.
See, Pontello's just starting to drop back there. He seemed to be holding the leaders up earlier in the piece, and as the race has extended, his tyres might be going off. We're talking tyre conservation. It's a big part of it. These guys are starting to go a little quicker. His chassis seems to be going off a little bit, and he's dropping back.
Good crowd in at Willowbank Raceway for this second round of the APS series. We'll update you on where the next round will be held towards the latter stages of today's program after we see this Formula A race, the Pataris Press Formula A final, and Dive has moved up another spot.
Yeah, Clinton Dive's just taken Mark Winterbottom there, but Mark Winterbottom's got him back. This is an entertaining dice. These are two guys with a fair bit of experience. They've been racing each other for many years in New South Wales as juniors. They've come through as seniors and continuing the battle. It's very enthralling.
We talked a little earlier during the final of Intercontinental A about the budget required to be competitive in that class. What about this elite Formula A class?
Pretty similar, David. You need a couple of chassis, you need 3 or 4 engines, and you need a lot of rubber to test on. You also need a lot of tuning done on your engine. Your engine needs to be top-notch all the time. You can't run it one race, then the next race, and hope it's going to survive for the total of the season. You've got to keep that running red hot and well-tuned, rebuild after every single race meeting. A lot of cost involved in that. So again, you're talking 40, 50 to 80, $90,000. It's an awful lot of money.
And what about the price of purchasing one of these cars new off the showroom floor?
Well, you're looking anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000. The majority of the chassis are European, although you do have a number of great Australian chassis like the Azero and also the Arrow. The Azero here, Richie McLeod in kart 14, following the Tony kart, European chassis with Andrew Tomlinson. You can get it at a reasonable, affordable level, and of course your engines, you're looking at about $3,000 or $4,000 for those too. You don't have to run at this level. You can buy good second-hand karts and engines from any local kart shop.
Pontello under siege again. Wow.
Bit of a push there for Andrew Tomlinson, and Richie McLeod's thinking, this is fantastic. I've had the door left open for me for a couple of spots and I really don't have too much work to do. Tomlinson's fairly well versed in this class of racing. He's probably done more laps in this class this year than any of his opposition. He spent the early part of this year in Europe racing for the Tony Kart team in Europe. Famous Winter Cup and Margutti trophies against some of the top-notch European drivers, and he's learnt an awful lot. He's only been in karting for a handful of years. Here he is with his head down and really trying to do things, but I think he's struggling a little bit this weekend.
So Tomlinson in the thick of the action. Pontello, we've seen him as one of the major players in this race since almost the outset. Not necessarily going forward as far as his progress is concerned. Here's McFadden, race leader.
Here's the man that will look at that guy. Who can do anything about Neil McFadden? The rumour was at the beginning of the year that he was going to be able to do this from the front and really show these Formula A guys the way home. Jamie Whincup, who originally wasn't going to contest the CIK series this year, thought, I'm not going to let this cocky young guy come into this series and dominate it all his own way. I'm going to come back, defend my title and show him a thing or two. Unfortunately, Jamie Whincup's having one of those weekends, and so is Neil McFadden, again at the front. 2 rounds, potentially 2 victories. It's not a bad start to your senior career in the elite class, David.
Yeah, sort of thing you're getting used to, isn't it? He does it time after time. Rosicki, right-hand side of your picture.
Still leading Brendan Dive. There's a fair gap back now to that Winterbottom and Clinton Dive battle, but really Neil McFadden's a class act. There's nothing more you can say. He's done a fantastic job. His parents are right behind him. His mother, I know, shoots footage of every single lap that he runs. They go home, they sit around the television with a coffee and go through every single lap over and over to watch what Neil does. Any race he's in, she's there with the big cam copying the whole lot. His father's very well versed in chassis setup. Quite a formidable crew, and they're racing with the Top Kart team, which backed Troy Hunt. Troy Hunt's in Europe, and they really have some fantastic knowledge. Those Hurst-tuned Coma engines, fantastic job. They're Australian-tuned, whereas a lot of the other engines that the Tony Kart drivers have are Italian-tuned engines. A lot of the other engines that the Tony Kart drivers have are Italian-tuned engines.
The best part about McFadden, for mine, having met the young man on a couple of occasions, he's totally unaffected by his success. There's no big head syndrome at this stage of his career.
Well, let's hope that doesn't creep in. That's a big part of being a complete racing driver, is being able to cope with fame.
Come on, here's McFadden. He's got about half a lap of the Willowbank Raceway to negotiate before he takes victory in round 2 of the APS series in this, the Pataris Press Formula A finale. Being quite a drive by Michael Caruso. There he is now on screen. He's next on the racetrack, and you'll find that's about the way they're going to finish here. As McFadden runs back onto the main straight, we'll see the checkered flag for him fairly soon. In fact, there it is now. And boy, he's greeted that a lot of times in his young career at this stage. He's beaten them easily in the end, Sean, quite comfortably.
Fantastic job by Neil McFadden. Very little emotional shown by that young man, as you'll see in the interviews, but he really has done the job, taking out the class in fantastic style.
There it is, McFadden the victor, Caruso second, Lodzinski, then Brendan Dive, Clinton Dive, Mark Winterbottom, Richard McLeod, Andrew Tomlinson, Jamie Whincup, and Mark Domershey finishing in 10th in the Tippy Kart PCR Bridgestone. Reminder about the next round of the APS kart racing series. Firstly, let's round out the results there. Wesley May, Chris Walton, Joshua Pontello, Simon Richardson, Tyson Pearce, William Yarwood, Adam Graham, Bradley Brown, Malcolm Heath and Clint Cathcart finishing officially 20th in that particular event. Now the third round of the APS kart racing series comes your way on the 20th of August at Sydney's Eastern Creek International Karting Raceway. We'll have a full replay right here on C7 Sports Checkered Flag program.
...2000 APS Racing Series, round 2 of the Pataris Press Formula A. Results a little bit similar. First and second are the same, although second had to do it off the back of the grid, and third's the 1998 champion, Neil McFadden. Are these guys going to be able to stop you?
Oh, I hope not. I mean, next round I'll try and do the same thing and see what happens.
You got the home track advantage, of course, but so is Caruso, and if Caruso can start off the front instead of the back, he might be able to stop you.
I hope so. It's difficult from the back.
Do you have any troubles on the way through? I noticed you gave Ryan Lodzinski a wave at one stage when he let you into second, and you almost lost the position in being polite.
I was just making sure that, no hard feelings.
Any hard feelings, Ryan?
Nah, none at all, mate.
Well, thank you very much for being with us this week on Checkered Flag. Hope you've enjoyed all the highlights in the second round of the APS kart racing series from Willowbank Raceway in Queensland. Unfortunately, time has beaten us this week. Until next week on the program, take care.
This has been a C7 Sport production.